Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. Just want to talk to y'all about Jason Garrett today, future of the Dallas Cowboys, where we're headed. Obviously, we have one more game against the Washington Redskins, Week 17. Possibility of still making the playoffs depending on the outcome of the Eagles-Giants game. But really long-term, the conclusion of this decade, it's been all Jason Garrett. Where are we headed, and what should we, as fans, be paying attention to? Want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Boss's Ranch, phenomenal product. Y'all should print that on a t-shirt when I say phenomenal product, Matthew. But I love us some Boss's Ranch, and we love them here at Fanatic Perspective. Y'all go check them out, your local H-E-B, cold produce. Some of y'all have been tagging me on Twitter and the Boss's Facebook account or Twitter account, and those will be in the link below as long as our social media accounts. But guys, I have not gotten enough great compliments regarding how phenomenal this product is. So check them out, H-E-B Cold Produce. You will not be disappointed. Best darn ranch in all of Texas. So Jason Garrett, look, I'm going to start by saying this because there's been, everybody has an opinion on Jason Garrett, and that's fine. And it comes with the territory when you're talking about being the head coach and the face of America's team and the coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Jason Garrett is not a bad football coach. And I actually think Jason Garrett's a relatively good football coach. My issue is that he's not good enough, okay? And at some point in time, you have to, and I'm talking about Jerry Jones and those who run this business, because we've talked on this channel about this being run like a family business. And I love that cowherd analogy that he made on his show. And Jason Garrett's been a part of the family. Jokes, whether you want to joke about it or not, he's a part of the family. And I think he is a good head coach. And I think his record, because as Bill Parcells once said, you are what your record is, his record over this past decade is good. And that's what he is. And if that's all the Cowboys ever want to be, and they don't want to ascend up or down, and every now and again you make a push to the divisional round, keep Jason Garrett. That's fine. But if you want to get to where you want to go in terms of winning a Super Bowl, threatening for, where you actually lock down this division and you don't have this nonsense of 14 years in a row where a different person's won the NFC East. And yes, I know the Eagles won a Super Bowl, a couple years ago, but you look at how bad the Giants have been the last 5 years. You look at how dysfunctional the Redskins have been over the last almost 30 years. And the Eagles went into salary cap hell, got out of it, and won a Super Bowl all during the course of Jerry and Jason. That's inexcusable for the Dallas Cowboys organization. And at some point, you have to say, look, I'm cool with stability, I'm cool with consistency, but we have to win. And when I say win, I'm talking about winning the ultimate prize. And we haven't even put ourselves in position to do that. Now, is everything Jason Garrett's fault? No. Some of the players have slid in terms of accountability, because this isn't college, this is professional football. And players are not being held accountable as they should be, especially considering the amount of money some of these guys are making. Now, on the same token, we also look around the league and we see the difference one coach can make, or a cultural change or organizational change can make on an entire franchise, and how people can turn around. It's one of the ways the Eagles turned around so quickly. Now, Jason Garrett, I also believe this. I think he has a good message, but I think a good message can grow tired and fall upon tired ears. Sometimes your mom and your dad could say the same thing, but you're receiving the message from your dad because that's who you have the connection with. But they're saying the exact same thing. So I don't think Jason Garrett is saying anything incorrect. Now, there's other lists of reasons why I have on why it's time to move on Jason Garrett. We can talk about the lack of approach to analytics. We can talk about the lack of attention to detail to game flow. We can talk about not paying attention to special teams and not holding that whole third part of the game accountable. We can talk about all that. But going big picture here, overall, yeah, he's been a good head coach, but it's not good enough. I make this analogy on the channel all the time. I talk about the late 80s to early 90s Bulls when they made the transition from Doug Collins to Phil Jackson. Doug Collins was getting them to the Eastern Conference semis. the East. I think he even got them to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Pistons before they realized, like, hey, we have Michael freaking Jordan. We have some other young talent on this team, whether it was a Charles Oakley at the time, ultimately a Horace Grant, a young Scottie Pippen. All these guys were trying to develop. And Doug Collins, as good as he is, he was the guy that could help us get to the point of like making the playoffs and understanding that we're going to be consistently good. But he's not a championship level head coach. And they went out and got a championship level head coach. And at the time, did they know Phil Jackson was? No, there was no proof of that either. But they made a move for a reason. And they factored in whether it was schematically or how the new coach would connect with the players to get the best possible production out of those guys. They did that with Phil Jackson. 6 championships later, the result, is in the pudding, right? Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, that's the type of level of thinking you need to have here. Jason Garrett is your Doug Collins. The only problem is you kept him for 10 years. You didn't realize that. So until you realize that, and hopefully it's after Sunday's game, and I don't care if they make the playoffs. I don't care if they make it to the NFC Championship game. You need to get a championship level head coach. Because we've also seen coaches and guys in this league who for 1 year or for whatever reason, and the roster can just, they can make it to the Super Bowl. Ron Rivera being an example of that with Carolina, who I think is probably in line with right there with Jason Garrett as a head coach. Again, these are terrible, bad, Marty Morningwig type head coaches. I'm not talking about that. But with the amount of talent that you have on this team, and yes, this team is talented, even though several people are underperforming, the lack of ability to cultivate that talent and to produce, when you see other teams, when you lose to a football team in the Philadelphia Eagles who comes in with a practice squad-laden group, and the team's not ready to play, and you're not making adjustments on the fly, and we don't see that energy, because to me, the team reflects the head coach's attitude, demeanor, so forth. And I know Jason Garrett does more on the sideline than just clap and stand there. That's the camera work. If those of us who go to the games, I do see him interacting with players at times. They just don't show it. However, the energy is the energy, and that's what's being reflected upon our football team. Now, whether they go the path of Urban Meyer or Lincoln Riley or, Mike McCarthy even, or somebody else, to change things, I don't know. But the Joneses have to also think, like, are we going to keep doing the family business thing? Because you're going to start to hear the talk bubble up about Jason Witten. And to me, that would be a mistake, especially considering this would be his first job coaching anything. That's too risky, especially for a position of this magnitude, what the roster is, what it is. And Jason Witten also being a part of what I want a separation from the last 10 years of the culture. Because Jason Witten as a player was wasted under this. You talk about a Hall of Fame level player. At one point in time, we had an offense featuring Hall of Fame Jason Witten, Tony Romo, however you want to say it. Now, I will say, if Eli Manning a Hall of Famer, Tony Romo a Hall of Famer too. That's just my energy. Hall of Fame Terrell Owens. Then you moved on to Des Bryant. Now we've moved on. That's why I'm like, all these people blowing up Amari Cooper about his lack of whatever. It's BS, because we've done the same thing with Dez. We've done the same thing with T.O. I mean, it's just, there's always a stud receiver or whoever. I'm sorry, hopefully that person's okay if y'all can hear that on the recording. But there's always a stud receiver who's in conflict with the organization. And at some point, we got to look at, and that may not fully be Jason Garrett, but we got to look at the organization and the coach versus continuing to blame the same person every single time. And when I say the same person, I'm talking about that position group. We saw from 2011 to 2013, we went 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. I think each of those years it was win and get in, or some of that situation. I remember the one with like RG3, his rookie year. It was win and get in. We lost all those games. We never got in. This past week, it was win and get in. And there were games where Tony Romo played really, really bad and we didn't win. And it all came down to that. And now we look back at it and we're like, yeah, Tony Romo was actually a really, really good quarterback, and he wasn't the problem. Granted, he had some bad moments in those situations, but overall, like, we should have won with him. And here we are with Dak Prescott. He has a really bad game against Philly. Really bad game. We lose. It's win or get in. We don't win. And people are like, yeah, we're doing the same thing that we did with Tony Romo with Dak. Same thing with, DeMarco Murray fumbles in the Green Bay playoff game after being offensive MVP, and, we throw him to the side. We get Zeke Elliott in big games. We somehow can't get Zeke going, whether it's the playoff game last year, this year in the Eagles. Can't get Zeke going. It's not Zeke, okay? It wasn't DeMarco. Throw in whatever running back before, Marion Barber or Felix Jones, whoever. It wasn't them. It's this organization. And you got as an organization. Now we can't change the organization because Jerry's always going to be there. But you're going to have to get a coach with a position of championship level experience to get them to that final stage and take advantage of maximizing the talent that they have. And sometimes, some of the talent may be overrated, but what happened to getting guys to play above their talent level? Because I see other teams around the league doing that as well, okay? So I'm tired of seeing guys come in and a Jalen Smith not even being properly utilized and playing him to his strengths on defense. I'm talking about, Randall Cobb's 1 week, we can get him the football, and the next week we can't. 1 week Michael Gallup has this, next week we can't do that. Right? So across the board, to me, it's never been fully on because we've changed the players over this last decade. But the one constant has been Jason Garrett alongside Jerry Jones, and it's time to change that no matter where we go. And hopefully we are able to get our Phil Jackson for the Dallas Cowboys. So guys, I'd love to hear everyone's comments. This was more of a conversation piece I wanted to have with y'all regarding this game coming up against Washington, because we got to think beyond this season and what we want to be as an organization heading into 2020. All right, guys, peace.